Hello, welcome to Unit 6. Today we're going to be talking about clear thinking. We're going to be talking about the process that your mind goes through in order to think through what it is that you're reading, think through what it is that you're writing. Then we're going to talk about integrity. That's something that every student should be very aware of, and actually every Christian should be uppermost in our minds to live lives of integrity. When you get to the second video, in that video we're going to be talking about study habits that will help you memorize better, help you remember the things that you really want to remember. And then the last topic that we're going to be talking about today is how to take tests, why tests are important, and what you need to do in order to take tests well. And so with that, let's begin today. What do you need to do to become a better thinker? Basically, you need to understand the relationship between a point and its support. The point is the main idea, or the general idea that a person is thinking. The support is the evidence that is given to back up this idea. Why or how is what you're saying true? The two most important things you must do as a speaker or writer are to, first, make a point, second, support the point. The two most important things you must do as a reader are to, first, recognize the point, and second, recognize the support for the point. For example, if a person said, "You should not put your hand into the box," that's simply a statement. There is no support for that statement. And you might want to put your hand in that box because it looked interesting. However, if the person that said that went on to say one of the following, that would be support. A flesh-eating spider as big as your fist just crawled in there. Or, there are freshly cut leaves of poison ivy in there. Or, a mousetrap is inside, ready to spring. All of those would be support statements to why you should not put your hand into that box. Those support statements would convince you that it was a bad idea. They provide the basis for understanding and agreeing with the point. There must be logical support for a point. Logical means reasonable, to be expected. The results make sense. When you look at the support provided for a point, you want to make sure that the support truly backs up the point. The support, in other words, must be logical and relevant. Suppose someone made the following point. My dog Otis is not very smart. Which of the following provides logical support? So these next 6 statements might be support for the statement that my dog Otis is not very smart. You need to determine which one is logical support. He is 5 years old and doesn't respond to his name yet. Well, that would indicate that he's not very smart if he's 5 years old and doesn't know his name. He is sad when I leave for work every day. That's not logical support because many dogs are sad when their owners leave. He always gets excited when visitors arrive. That happens all the time too with most dogs. However, He often attacks a bush in the garden as if it's an angry animal. Now that is a dumb dog. He gets along very well with my neighbor's cat, just means that he is not very antagonistic. He's not a mean dog. And 6, I often have to put food in front of him because he can't find it by himself. That is a dumb dog when they cannot find their way to food. So 1, 4, and 6 are the logical support for the statement. In everyday life, people are constantly making points and providing support for those points. If the points were always clearly stated and logically supported, the world would be a better place. Unfortunately, many people are not skilled in clear thinking. The ideas they advance often lack reasonable and logical support. To be a clear thinker, you need to understand this and recognize when their support is not reasonable or logical. The following are examples of main points that have logical support. In the following, mark the point with a P if in front of it, if it is the point, and the other statements are supporting statements. So the roof on this house is leaking. The house is not in good shape. There are signs of termites in the walls. Water runs in every time it rains. The main point is the house is not in good shape. The roof leaking, the termites in the walls, and the roof leaking when it rains are all indications of supporting the fact that it's not in good shape. Some parrots can be trained to count. Parrots are intelligent pets. Parrots have been taught to recognize shapes and colors. Most parrots can learn to speak as many as 200 words. Of those 4 statements, which one is the main point? Parrots are intelligent pets. The trained to count, recognizing shapes and colors, and learn to speak all indicate that the parrot is an intelligent pet. Authors do not define the new terms they use in each chapter. The book has few illustrations and no index. The sentences are long and hard to understand, and the material does not seem well organized. That chemistry textbook is not very helpful. Which of those statements is the main point? The chemistry textbook is not very helpful because the authors don't define new terms. There are no illustrations, no index, and the sentences are long and hard to understand. Hearing can be damaged by a number of common sounds. Listening to loud music through headphones can cause hearing loss. The sounds some machinery makes can contribute to deafness. The noise level of many buses and trucks is high enough to damage hearing permanently. Which of those statements is the main point? Hearing can be damaged by a number of common sounds. Loud music, machinery, trucks, all are common sounds that can damage hearing. Once you identify a point and its support, you need to decide if the support really applies to the point. The critical thinker will ask, is this support logical, or is it beside the point? Is it true, but it doesn't matter? It's not relevant to the topic. In their enthusiasm sometimes to advance a point, people often bring up support that does not apply. For example, a student may wish to make the point that her English instructor is a poor teacher. To support that point, the student may say, "He speaks so softly I can hardly hear him. In addition, he wears ridiculous clothes." A critical thinker, a clear thinker, will realize that although a soft voice may in fact interfere with an instructor's effectiveness, what the instructor wears has absolutely nothing to do with how well he teaches. The first reason for disliking the English teacher is logical and relevant support, but the second reason is beside the point. It doesn't matter. If a person was making the point that a woman in the news was courageous, which of the following paragraphs would support that statement, that point? She collects bags of canned and boxed food for months and then brought it to one of the local churches to be distributed. Thanks to her efforts, the church was able to feed 400 people. That number includes over 100 children. Those statements are statements about a person who is very generous, but courageous means that they are brave, that they face difficulties with courage. The first one doesn't seem to be talking about a courageous person. B, she had at hand all the facts and figures to back up her statements, citing 3 different studies by experts in the field. She handled the reporters' questions with ease and confidence. Again, that paragraph really doesn't talk about somebody courageous. It talks about somebody who is intelligent, who makes good statements when faced with reporters, but it really doesn't talk about being courageous. So C, when she saw the child being attacked, she went to his aid without a moment's hesitation. She ran up shouting, "Let him go," and then kicked the ferocious dog as hard as she could. When the dog released the child, she grabbed the boy and pushed him to safety, even as the dog turned on her. Now that is the description of a very courageous woman. So if your point was Greg is irresponsible, which of these supports that statement? He gives up his bus seat to elderly travelers when he sees people carrying heavy packages or struggling with squirming children. He rushes to open doors to help them out. No, that sounds like a very responsible person. So I wouldn't say that that is supporting the fact that he's irresponsible. He never pays his bills on time. When he borrows things, he returns them damaged or not at all. He is usually late for appointments if he remembers them at all. Now that really sounds like a very irresponsible person, and that is probably our answer, but we have to make sure by reading the last one. No matter how much trouble I'm having with my English assignment, he refuses to do any of it for me. He says that between his own homework and his job, he doesn't have time. but he always gets good grades, and I have trouble with my grades. Furthermore, when I need someone to cover for me at work so that I can see my girlfriend, he's always too busy with something else to help me out. No, the I in this paragraph is the one that seems irresponsible, not Greg. And so our answer to this one is B. B is the one that describes an irresponsible Greg. If the point was the child is very curious, A, he was reciting the alphabet when he was only 3 years old. By age 7, he was doing math at a 4th grade level. He skipped 3rd and 5th grades. Well, that supports the fact that a child is very intelligent, but curious, no. His favorite word is no. He doesn't start picking up his toys until 5th or 6th time he's told. Mealtime is a battle to get him to eat properly. No, I think that describes a child who is very rebellious or stubborn. C, he has taken apart all the clocks in the house to see how they work. He borrowed his father's hammer to break rocks because he wanted to see what they looked like inside. He's always asking how and why. Yes, that is what defines a curious child, always seeking to learn something new. In the next samples, 3 of the supports are logical and 2 are not. So let's see if we can identify which are logical and which are not. The point. English 102 was the hardest course I ever took. A, the course included a research paper, 5 essays, 3 oral reports, and 2 major exams. Yes, I would say that indicates that it is a requirement of a very difficult course. B, the course was required for my major. No, if it's required for your major, then that's just a fact. That doesn't say that it's difficult or not difficult. C, the teacher called on students without warning and deducted points when they didn't know an answer. Yes, I would say that that would be a sign of someone who it was a difficult course to be in. D, the teacher has been at the school for over 20 years. Again, that's just a fact. That's just something that's true. It doesn't lend itself to supporting being the hardest course. And then E, on average, I had to do at least 3 hours of homework every hour in the class. Yes, if you had to do 3 hours of homework for every hour in class, that would indicate that it was a very difficult class. So A, C, and E are logical support to the statement English 102 was the hardest course I ever took. The next point, I am a perfect example of someone who has a math anxiety. Fear of math is almost as widespread as fear of public speaking. Again, that is just a fact. It doesn't lend itself to supporting someone who says they have a math anxiety. B, I feel dread every time I sit down to take our Friday math quiz. Yes, that would be an indication that they have a math anxiety if they dread their math quiz. C, during the math midterm, I froze and didn't even try to answer most of the questions. That also would indicate if they froze, that they have a math anxiety. I also have a great deal of anxiety when I sit down to write a paper. That's just a fact, doesn't speak to a specific math anxiety. And E, I turned down a job as a sales clerk because I would have had to figure out how much change customers would get back. If you refuse to get a job simply because of math, then that would be an indication of a math anxiety. So the ones that support this statement are B, C, and E. Planting a flower garden in that vacant lot would benefit the neighborhood. So what supports that? A, farming was one of the earliest activities of civilization. That has absolutely nothing to do with a flower garden in the vacant lot. B, flowers provide beauty that everyone can enjoy. That would be a reason to have flowers in a vacant lot. C, people would not dispose of garbage in a garden as they do in a vacant lot. Definitely would be a positive for having a garden in a vacant lot. Planting a garden would bring young and old people together, promoting harmony. That also would be a good thing in a neighborhood where there is a vacant lot, that it would be something that would bring people together and help them to connect with each other. There are many types of flowers that could be planted in this climate. That's a very general statement that really doesn't speak to why you should plant a garden in a vacant lot. So B, C, and D are the support for the statement, planting a flower garden in that vacant lot would benefit the neighborhood. What is Snoopy's point in his paper? What is his support for his point? Why dogs are superior to cats? They just are, and that's all there is to it. Short and to the point. Unfortunately for Snoopy, he wouldn't get a good grade because there needs to be more information when you're trying to convince someone of a particular belief. The heart of any effective paper, whether it's a paragraph or a several paragraph essay or a longer paper, is that you make a point and support that point. That's what you'll be doing in your research paper later on in the semester. The point the author made in 10 Keys about integrity was, when you choose the way of dishonesty and deception, you always lose. The chapter is written to explain everything that a cheater loses. One of the things the author says is, each individual has a chance to make friends and earn the respect of people. But when you choose to be insincere by lying, cheating, deceiving others, you eventually lose the trust and respect of people. The author quoted Edward Sims, who said, "There is no way to pull off cheating. You cannot lie to life. You may deceive your teacher about what you know, but you cannot deceive life. What you have not learned leaves a hole that nothing but learning can fill, and no amount of covering can ever disguise." In other words, when you graduate from school and you are expected to know the information that you lied about and that you really don't know, when you go to your job, somebody is going to want you to be able to do something that makes use of that information. And so you're going to be at a loss because you chose to cheat instead of taking advantage of the opportunity to learn. When you choose the way of dishonesty and deception, you always lose when you think you have gained. You lose the respect of others. You can fool all of the people some of the time and some of the people all of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all the time. Somebody will realize what you've done. It happened last year. One of the girls in my life group said, I'm really struggling with a particular individual, and she didn't tell me his name, but she said, I watched him as he pulled paper just enough out of his briefcase or his backpack or whatever to look at answers while he was taking a test. That girl lost tremendous respect of the young man that was doing that. You lose your self-respect. Feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety, and fear plagues you. No peace of mind and comfort. You know God isn't pleased with your behavior. You lose touch with God. In Leviticus it says, do not lie, do not deceive one another. Lying and deception are sins, and sin separates us from God. Integrity defined is uncorrupted, blameless, and consistently honest. Note the consistently. Integrity is not just one time. Integrity is the way it is in your life, that you are consistently over and over again honest. It's defined by Stephen Carter in his book, Discernment, discerning what is right and what is wrong. Commitment, acting on what you have discerned, even at personal cost. And pronouncement, saying openly that you are acting on your understanding of right and wrong. In other words, you are determining and realizing what is wrong, and you are committed to do what is right, even when it may cost you something. And then you say openly that what your understanding is of right and wrong. You don't try and hide things. Marks of integrity. A person with integrity has an excellent attitude. They are faithfulness and diligent at work. They have personal purity of the highest caliber. They are consistent in their walk with God. And what is the hope of redeeming the lost value of integrity? Once you've cheated and realized how wrong you were and you want to change, what can you do? Number one, of course, turn to God. Confess your deception and ask for forgiveness. Work hard to earn back the trust and respect of the people you've deceived. That is probably the hardest step, because you know that once somebody has betrayed you or lied to you, that it takes a long time for you to trust that what they're saying is true. Say what you mean and do what you say. Be honest and truthful. Prove your sincerity with actions. There is a saying, actions speak louder than words. You can say all that you want to say about something, but if you don't actually do what you're saying, then you don't really believe it, and it's not really true in your life. That's why actions speak louder than words. The Bible has several passages that talk about integrity. In Proverbs 10, it says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. In Chronicles, it says, I know, my God, that you test the heart and are pleased with integrity. And in Proverbs 11, it says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Duplicity means deceitfulness in speech or conduct, such as by speaking or acting in two different ways. If you want to make a duplicate, a copy of a paper, duplicate is from the same word, meaning a copy or a second. And so people talking two different ways to people, they have duplicity in what they say. And then Paul in 2 Corinthians says, now this is our boast. Our conscience testifies that we have conducted ourselves in the world, and especially in our relations with you, with integrity and godly sincerity. We have done so relying not on worldly wisdom, but on God's grace. We all have to rely on God's grace in order to live a life of integrity.